Hey there, Kindred Spirits. Welcome to Kindred Spirits Book Club, the podcast where two grown-ass ladies geek out about Anne of Green Gables. I'm Kelly Gerner, and I'm joined by my co-host, Reagan Duffy.
Hello, Kelly. Hello, Kindred Spirits.
Hello, Reagan! And everybody, we are so pleased to have you here in the final episode of Season 4. We have covered a lot this season.
Yes, we did.
It was definitely our most ambitious season, and almost accidentally, I have to say. Not only did we talk about 4 different books, but we also had so many special guests. We had Ella Montgomery academics, we had artists, playwrights, and actors. I admit it did get a little bit away from us in terms of length of the season, but
It did.
but we just couldn't leave anything out. And then, of course, along the way, we have met so many more new kindred spirits, and we are delighted to welcome them into the fold. And if you also found us this season, welcome. We are so happy you're here.
We are so glad you've joined us.
Reagan, how's your summer shaping up?
You know, this summer is going to be kind of chill. We had our big spring break trip to Europe, so that was the bulk of our vacation spending, let's say. We're going to hang here. We decided to kick off the summer actually by getting some foster kittens. So I've got 2 insanely wild little kittens, an orange one who lives up to all the stereotypes about orange kittens being all impulse, no thought, and this cute little like tricolor tabby and white little guy who is a little smarter. He's smarter than the orange one. And they are so much fun, just tearing around my office and cuddling with my daughter in her room. And they are just a delight to have.
Well, I have to say, if anyone is in the LA area and looking to adopt a kitten,
yes, please.
When do you think these little guys might be available, Reagan?
They will be they'll probably be available, honestly, right when this episode drops. So if you are listening to this, like, today, the day that this episode comes out, and you want these little guys, one or both of these little guys, DM me immediately. They are so sweet.
I can confirm they are so cute. The other night we were doing some podcast preparation and they were climbing on Reagan's bookshelf behind her on Zoom. And every time I looked over there was a cat in like some precarious position.
Absolutely. WrestleMania constantly.
Well, we're going to have to put some pictures of them up on our Instagram.
And how about you, Kel? How's your summer shaping up?
Well, so like you, we are going to do a very chill summer. After the fires, we decamped to a sort of a beach community. So I've decided that I'm on vacation all summer. Now I am still going to work and all of that, but
summer.
I am fully enjoying the fact that we live really close to the beach right now. We want to spend as much time enjoying the sort of different natural landscape around us. I also made a list of all the sort of free events that are happening in this area over the summer in an effort to kind of save money and do things that are like maybe a little bit more community forward to help us feel a little bit more at home here. So I have this master list that I made of every single free concert, free movie, free like educational lecture, everything like that.
That's
and
awesome.
I know I'm excited. So I won't have any excuses any like Friday or Saturday night to sit at home thinking like, oh, I don't have anything to do, because there's something to do pretty much every weekend and they're all free. But I have to tell you, Reagan, about some of the names of these local bands that are playing. I think that in order to have a cover band that plays in regional parks and is on this like summertime circuit, like you have to have like a really crazy name. So a couple that I really like were Jimmy's Buffet.
Yes. Yes.
I assume is a Jimmy Buffett cover band. We're definitely going to have to see that one on the beach one night. There's Faba, which I'm guessing is an ABBA cover band. Flock of 80s. I assume
Flock of Seagulls, 80s pop cover.
That seems to be the thought there. I'm looking forward to that one. But my absolute favorite, and we are definitely going to see them, is Yachty by Nature. Which I have
is a Naughty by Nature / yacht rock mashup.
Correct.
Please, can we come down for that?
Please, I hope you do. I will let you know where and when for a free concert of Yachty by Nature overlooking the ocean.
Amazing.
Those are our big summer plans.
Love it.
I love a low-key summer. I think we're both going to have a nice time. Low stress, not shooting for the moon, just going to kind of enjoy life where we are.
And enjoy our communities.
Exactly. Well, everyone, we are going to finish off this season with a deep dive into the new Anne of Green Gables play, now at the Stratford Festival in Stratford, Ontario, in Canada. A few episodes ago, we gave you our sort of overall big picture review of the play. TLDR, we loved it. And you also got to hear from Caroline Toll, the actor who is playing Anne on the stage right now. So that episode is called Anne of Green Gables in the Spotlight. And then we also brought you an interview with the playwright and director Kat Sandler about her process of adapting this beloved novel, and that is the episode called Anne on Stage. If you haven't listened to either of those episodes, we do recommend going back, checking them out, especially before we kind of get into our deep dive today.
Right. So today we are going to do an in-depth discussion of the play, and that will include spoilers and details. So if you are planning to see this play sometime before it closes at the end of October, just save this episode, come back to it then. If you've already seen it, or you're not going to be able to get to Stratford to see the play, then go ahead, keep listening. We want to take you along with us to experience this show. But Kindred Spirits, we love hearing from you, so always feel free to drop us a line at our email, kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com, or DM us on Instagram, we're kindredspirits.bookclub over there. If you've enjoyed this season, please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. That really helps the pod find new listeners. But now, let's get into the episode. For our Kindred Spirit of the episode, I think our kindred spirit has to be Kat Sandler and the cast of this play. Kat wrote something incredibly special that both brought a new perspective and framing to this favorite story, and also put so much care into honoring the original work. And all of the actors were so wonderful. They made our favorite characters just live and breathe on the stage.
We love you, Kat. For our quote of the episode, we had to share a couple of lines from the play that we thought were absolutely delightful. So, quotes of the episode today. In the scene when Anne is explaining bosom friendship to Diana, she says, "Diana, bosom friendship is far more serious than marriage." It got a huge laugh in the show we saw it at, and also we agree. And then when Miss Stacy is inspiring Anne's essay a little later on, she tells Anne, quote, "Imagination and the past are wonderful to explore, but there's power in who you are. There's romance in the now, and there's beauty in what's actually around you. You know that. You find it every day." And with lines like that, you just know that the spirit of Ella Montgomery is alive and well on stage.
All right, well, let's get into our story club. Kelly, how many adaptations of Anne do you think we have talked about on this pod so far?
So many. So many.
We, of course, have discussed the 1985 Kevin Sullivan CBC miniseries adaptation of Anne of Green Gables, and we talked about its sequel. We discussed the first season of Anne with an E, and while we didn't go in depth in reviewing them, we also saw the Anne of Green Gables musical and the Anne and Gilbert musical in Prince Edward Island when we were there last summer. We also did a whole episode on the graphic novel adaptations of Anne as well. And now we're going to talk about this theatrical adaptation. It's kind of interesting to think about adaptations as a whole. We've been having a lot of conversations about this. What an adaptation decides to keep in, to take out, to condense or reorder in order for this book to fit into whatever medium it's being transformed into. There are some things you just have to have if this is going to be an Anne of Green Gables adaptation, right? What do you think those are for you, Kelly?
I think that's a fascinating question. Certainly, there are some plot elements, like there just isn't a story, right, if Anne doesn't come to Green Gables. And then, of course, I think you need to have Anne's early dust-ups with Rachel Lynde, of course, befriending Diana, her rivalry with Gilbert. Those are all story elements that are just sort of integral to the plot to me. But I do think that there are a few thematic elements that I think are essential too. And the more I think about it, Reagan, I think this could be an entire episode in and of itself, right? Like, what are those moments that maybe they seem small, but actually are standing in for something really, really important to the story? For me, The White Way of Delight is absolutely one of those moments. I don't think you could have an adaptation that really captured Anne without it. It is so much more than just Matthew and Anne passing through a blossoming bower of springtime leaves. It's the moment when this anxious, chatty little girl finally stops talking and takes in the world around her when she becomes grounded in this place that is about to become her home. It represents hope, it represents a new beginning, and it represents the limitless possibilities of her life. I don't think you can adapt this book without it. And to be fair, I don't think we've seen an adaptation that didn't have an absolutely exquisite White Way of Delight moment. I think the show in Stratford had a particularly lovely one. We both, I think, got a little misty-eyed.
I think we did too. And I agree all about why the White Way of Delight in particular is so important to the story. And it tells us something important about Anne too. We see in this moment her relationship to the natural world, which is so integral to her personality and to beauty. And we can see how this must be something that has saved her so far.
Yes.
I also think Anne has to have red hair. It's just too important to her character arc. She's not Anne of Green Gables without red hair. And the same thing with a big imagination. She just has to be able to have a huge imagination.
Yeah.
I also think her relationships with Matthew and Marilla and with Diana are also really key. These relationships that Anne forms, the way she changes those around her and the way that they change her, are absolutely crucial to understanding Anne's arc.
Yeah.
It's interesting because adaptations have to serve multiple different audiences. Because some folks who are coming to an adaptation, this might be the first way they encounter this classic. This is their in to Anne of Green Gables. Like, I know for my daughter, the graphic novels were her in to Anne of Green Gables. So an adaptation needs to make sure the story flows and is interesting and understandable to folks who don't already know it. And for some folks, they are already aware of Anne's story. Maybe they read it back when they were a kid. Maybe they engaged in some different adaptation of it. So they know the story beats, but they don't really know the details of the original. And for some, like us, we know this story inside and out. We know Ella Montgomery's original words and love them. And many of us have also experienced other adaptations as well. So for the artists who are adapting Anne in any way, this is a tricky needle to thread. This play, this Anne of Green Gables, is presented as the children's play at Stratford. So it's very much intended for children to be the principal audience. So the audience is going to be such a diverse mix of kids who think this stuff is old-fashioned, kids who already love a different version of Anne, teens who are too cool for this, adults who want to share a favorite story with the kid in their life, adults who are there just kind of along for the ride, and true fans who have come to see the book they love deeply on the stage. That's a lot of different audiences for one play to serve. I think an adaptation, particularly of this much beloved classic, has a whole different weight to carry. Anne is obviously a work that is steeped in nostalgia for so many people. And anytime you approach something so deeply nostalgic, people are going to have feelings.
It's so true. They absolutely are. And I think it's important that you're pointing out that no adaptation can be like a word for word replica of the book, because that is what the book is for.
Right.
Like, we already have that.
Right. Exactly. If you want it to be faithful to the book, read the book.
Read the book. Read the book. And, anyone who is adapting a book into a different medium is going to have to make some changes to make it work for that medium. And then, of course, bring their own take to it as well. We talked to Kat in our episode about adapting this play, about how she saw herself as sort of a collaborator with Ella Montgomery. And I love that thought.
Mm-hmm.
I think of some of my favorite adaptations of like Jane Austen novels and things like that. And they can be so different. If you think of like the 2020 Autumn de Wilde Emma, for example, versus the 2005 Joe Wright Pride and Prejudice, very, very different tonally, very different to look at, very different sense of humor and aesthetic sensibilities. Both are entirely in keeping with what Jane was doing, right? That's what happens when you have another artistic collaborator, or in the case of a play or a movie, lots more artistic collaborators.
Yeah.
But all of these things have to find a way to hang together and be their own thing outside of the book, right? So even that beloved 1985 miniseries version of Anne of Green Gables isn't an exact replica, although for many of us of a certain age,
All right.
it is how we came to Anne, so it kind of feels like it's the closest, right? In our hearts, we sort of feel like that's the real one. But I'm thinking back to when we did our episode about that miniseries, and we had a lot to say about what was left out and what they added and how they sort of fleshed out that story and made it their own. It's cohesive in and of itself, but it is not faithful to the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we've talked about this as well with some of our guests on the pod about how our recollections of the book are often like a little conflated with the miniseries since we grew up with it. And so did many of our guests. And sometimes we'll have like, this happens to me all the time. I will have some kind of a thought about the books and I want to make a point, and then I realize that what I was thinking of was never in the book at all. So
Right. Right. It was only in the miniseries, but because you saw that either first or in collaboration with reading the book, I think that miniseries was both of our ins into the world of Anne of Green Gables. It melded together in our minds for a long time.
Right. Like the mouse in the pudding scene or whatever. That is in the book just a story that Anna's relating to Diana. We don't actually see that action happening, but it is a scene, and a very funny scene, in the movie.
Yes.
But anyway, I absolutely relate to the folks who look back to that 1985 miniseries and are like, that is the canonical Anne. That is my Anne. That's my Marilla. That is what I think of in my heart of hearts when I think of Anne. And I think that those of us who walk into this play holding on to that tightly in our hearts, this is going to be, it's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Because that 1985 miniseries is not 100% canonical to the book. It's just not.
Nope. Exactly right. Okay, so let's get into what we saw and experienced at the show. As soon as you walk into the theater, you will see the beautiful hand-painted scrim hanging across the stage, and it's depicting one of the red dirt paths. It evokes like Lover's Lane or the Haunted Wood, just like it would look in the spring, right? With sunlight filtering through the green leaves and flowers. There is a paper like floral tree growing up on the sides of the stage and across the top, and the stage is set with tree stumps and logs of different sizes that were painted beautifully with colorful brush strokes. They have an illustrated quality to them, almost a watercolor quality. On and around those stumps are all these little like Anne Easter egg props. So when you think of like what are the essential items that you think of for Anne of Green Gables, you think of a slate, you think of a tea kettle, you think of a little bottle of raspberry cordial, and all of those things were right there. And then in the center of the stage, there was a table with a small scale model of Green Gables, like a dollhouse Green Gables. Beautiful, gentle, pastoral, makes you think of everything you know and love about Green Gables. Contrast that to the music when you walk in is like girly power pop, like exactly the kind of music that tween girls love, that Anne would love if she was a tween in 2025. And so even while we were settling in our seats, we had a little like Taylor Swift sing along with the woman sitting next to us.
And I can confirm, as the mother of a middle schooler, that Love Story by Taylor Swift was the first pop song this generation of girls fell in love with. And it is a guarantee at every middle school dance, they will play it, and it will make all of them drop whatever they are doing and rush to the dance floor for a top of their lungs sing-along. Pitch perfect choice.
And I loved that pop vibe right at the top of the show. It helped me reset my expectations about what we were going to see. And it helped communicate to the audience that this show was going to have a different energy than they might otherwise have been expecting.
Right, right. They weren't playing kind of old-fashioned classical music that you might expect. Mm-hmm. As the audience filters into the theater, we see a stage manager in overalls and headset wandering around, checking on props, looking at lighting, and an older woman dressed in a robe, bustling around, making sure that everything is shipshape. As the audience settles down, we find that this detail-oriented woman is played by Maeve Beattie, and she is setting up for her Anne of Green Gables book club. She welcomes all of us to join her. She even reveals that she is wearing a period piece dress under her robe just to get into the spirit of it all. The other members of the book club start to join her, all carrying their copies of Anne. Stephen Howe nimbly leaps onto stage and starts exploring the props and saying he thought, well, people were just coming up from the audience. But he's invited to stay for the book club as well, even though he says he hasn't read the book.
Yeah, Stephen, it's so funny. He's actually sitting in the audience right at the start of every show, like he's in a seat. And on his Instagram, he has this really funny series of photos where every caption is like, going to see Anne of Green Gables for the first time again.
Maeve Beattie sits down and she starts to read Anne of Green Gables out loud. Her book club members then encourage her to think about experiencing this book in a more interactive, creative way. And they lead the audience in closing our eyes as she reads a description of Anne. And then Anne appears on the stage. Caroline Toll is Anne. She looks just like we have all imagined her. Long red braids, a too short dress, a straw hat, and clutching an old carpet bag. Her expression is all Anne, eager, open, and nervous. And then we all do the same to again imagine Marilla, actress Sarah Dodd, and Matthew, played by Tim Campbell. And they both look just as we expect them to. Matthew's tall and awkward with a full gray beard. Marilla's hair is scraped back in a no-nonsense bun, and she wears an apron over her serviceable dress.
So I have to pause and note something here because this was probably my favorite thing in the show. Maeve Beatty's book club hostess reads out loud that description of Anne, and then of Marilla, and then of Matthew, and the audience is told to close our eyes and take a deep breath. And then when we open our eyes, the actors are there, right? Fully embodying those characters. And there is just something that happens when a group of hundreds of people all inhale and then exhale at the exact same time. It feels a little bit like magic. And it made me feel like we had all conjured Anne in real life through the power of our own imaginations. And it made me also think, if you go back to our conversation with Emily Worcester from earlier this season, that's episode 61, about Ella Montgomery's childhood reading, she discusses this exact phenomenon of how we bring stories to life on like a neuroscientific level. And so here we all were in this theater, hundreds of people doing this science experiment together as a collective. I mean, without sounding too woo-woo, it felt like just paradigm shifting to me.
Yeah. I agree. I think it was this moment of collective magic. It invited the audience in to become a part of telling the story. It made us a part of the play. It made us feel connected to each other. Yeah. As a group, we were doing this, not just as individuals.
Right.
And then the book club reads the line about Mrs. Lynde, trying to imagine her onto the stage. No one appears. After a few more attempts, they push Maeve Beatty into the role. She's already dressed for it, obviously.
Of course.
She resists for a minute, but then she just launches herself into the role, and suddenly she is Mrs. Lynde. Judgmental and nosy, but with a good heart underneath it all. And here is where we can see Kat Sandler's vision snap into focus. The rest of the book club gradually shapeshifts into various characters as needed. Some become only one character. Maeve Beatty stays in her Mrs. Lynde characterization for the rest of the show. Julie Lumsden becomes Diana. Jordan Hall becomes Gilbert. The rest shift around depending on the scene, and this works better than it might sound laid out like this. The stage manager, played by Josue Laboucaine, is thrust into the role of the station master first, then he shows up as Mr. Phillips, and then Moody Spurgeon McPherson. Jennifer Villaverde is first Mrs. Spencer, then Mrs. Barry, then Prissy Andrews, then Miss Stacy. I don't know how she kept track of who she is. And Helen Belay is Mrs. Blewett and Josie Pye. Stephen Howe, the late addition to the book club, volunteers first to be the horse, and then he steps into Jane Andrews' role. And there's this meta-awareness happening. The chorus members all know that they are in a play and are actively engaging in telling the story, and they've invited the audience along with them. And they are using the alchemy of theater to create this collective experience. It's a fun and novel conceit to tell this familiar story, but it's also surprisingly moving, watching the actors also fall in love with Anne's story as they tell it. They're both in the story and aware of the story at the same time. They comment on the story or any changes. Our Mrs. Lynde chorus member likes to keep things book accurate. Diana's chorus member is all for using her imagination. And Gilbert's chorus member thinks there should be more Gilbert. Jane Andrews' chorus member is understanding the story as they go. And his questions are often the questions that kids might have as they read the book for the first time. But they are all taking great care with the story. You can tell that they love it. They want to do this story justice.
Yeah.
And then Anne, Marilla, and Matthew are thoroughly themselves all the way through.
Yeah, I like how each of the chorus members in a way almost stands in for a different type of audience member.
Yes.
So you will see yourself in everyone, depending on kind of how you come into the play. Reagan, did you ever see the musical Man of La Mancha?
I have not. I know the song The Impossible Dream.
That's all I know. Gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Man of La Mancha is a Broadway warhorse. It's splendidly operatic. It's one of my favorites. And I was thinking about it a little bit, how they actually do something a little bit similar in Man of La Mancha, in that there's a play within a play. So in that one, the story is that Cervantes, the Spanish writer, has been imprisoned during the Spanish Inquisition. And then in an effort to entertain his fellow prisoners, he starts telling them the story of Don Quixote. And as Cervantes is telling the story, he's sort of like casting his fellow fellow prisoners in various roles and turning items that they find in their jail cell into props to serve Don Quixote's story. So like a rusty plate becomes a shield, a pile of rubble becomes the windmill, and it's funny and it's engaging and it draws the audience in, and it's also very, very moving to see all those characters sort of embody their roles with a varying degree of enthusiasm and humanizing, right? It's meant to humanize these people who are imprisoned. So this version of Anne with these modern book club characters who then turn into the characters from the story, it reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. I hadn't known that, but I really loved this type of staging. It's leaning into what makes theater such a special experience, right?
Yeah.
Something theater is so specifically different from a movie, from a book. And this is such a great example of one of the ways that one of the special things it can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so once we've established our players, Anne's story starts to unfold in earnest, right? Just as we know it. We have Mrs. Lynde and Marilla discussing getting a boy orphan to help her on the farm, and Mrs. Lynde, of course, issuing dire warnings. And then we see Matthew approaching the station, where there is the excited Anne swinging her legs from the bench and greeting him with a torrent of words. Words that are very familiar to anyone who has read this book and fallen in love with Anne. She chatters on about sleeping in the blossoming cherry tree, she complains about her red hair, and she asks Matthew if he'd rather be divinely beautiful, dazzlingly clever, or angelically good. I mean, Reagan, talk about an element that has to be in any adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both agree that this question is absolutely essential to understanding Anne.
Yes. Obviously, we have lots of episodes talking about this because we think this is pretty much Anne's thesis statement. It's her underlying theme that runs throughout her character development.
Yeah.
It's a funny scene, as it should be, with Matthew clearly befuddled and taken aback, but also charmed as Anne rambles and rambles, and Stephen Howe trotting along, pulling the dolly that's become a makeshift carriage. And there's also a running joke added here about the ongoing gas issues of the orphan that Mrs. Spencer has adopted. It's not our humor, but the kids in the audience howled, and this is a children's play. Then Stephen Howe trots off the stage and the dolly is pushed into the white way of delight. The rest of the chorus carries branches of white flowers and they solemnly make a tunnel for the carriage to pass through. And Anne's chatter halts abruptly. Her face turns upward in awestruck wonder, and this is a moment of theater magic. We all know it's a stage and not real apple blossoms, and the actors know it too. But the whole audience takes a collective breath and sees in Anne's expression the beauty of the white way of delight. And I don't know, this moment felt so powerful to me. It made me tear up watching it.
Yeah, it was really, really special. So beautifully staged. So Anne and Matthew turn toward Green Gables, and as Matthew starts to tell Anne about it, that scrim drops away, and behind it is a beautiful 2-story framed Green Gables. The walls are open. There are stairs leading up to Anne's room from the kitchen with its old-fashioned stove and china cabinet. The table is set in front of the house, and there's a little side door that, of course, Mrs. Lynde bustles through. It's just a sketch of a house, like green beams supporting it and the windows framed in emptiness, but you know immediately that this is Green Gables. So we really loved seeing some of our favorite moments on the stage. Caroline Toll she just throws her whole body into Anne's dramatics and her big emotions. We noticed that she's wearing knee pads under her tights, and she needs them. She's flinging herself face down in despair, climbing up on a chair to deliver a recitation, flying into a fury at Mrs. Lynde as the lighting turns red to match her anger. You can easily feel the way that Matthew already loves Anne, and you see the way that Marilla is resisting loving her. Matthew and Marilla have like a little bit more of a bantering relationship than we've gotten to see in the past, and it's a nice character moment to see Matthew's sense of humor run throughout this play. Kat really knows what she's doing because she uses so many of our very favorite lines, including when Matthew tells Marilla we might be some good to her. After Marilla allows Anne to stay on a trial period, Diana is introduced at the picnic, and she quickly becomes a sturdy, stable presence in Anne's life. Julie Lumsden's Diana is practical and direct, intrigued by Anne's dramatics, and good at putting Josie Pye in her place. Diana's love of music is fleshed out here more so than in the book. Anne and Diana immediately bond over books. In this case, Lancelot and Elaine, because Kat knows that it's not the Lady of Shalott that Anne is obsessed with. And honestly, bonding over books, an extremely relatable way to make friends. Diana is first bemused by Anne's deeply felt proclamation of lifelong bosom friendship, but you can also see the moment that she just leans into it. Anne is an exciting sort of friend to have. Mrs. Barry's character is given a little bit more heft. She openly talks about how important it is for Diana to marry well, and you see a lot of that class snobbishness on full display, and that sets her up a little earlier as kind of an antagonist or at least a barrier between Anne and Diana's friendship. Now, it is a play, and there's a lot of plot and side characters to get through, so the play does a lot of reordering and condensing. We don't get Ruby Gillis or Charlie Sloane. There's no Mrs. Allen, no Aunt Josephine Barry.
Like many adaptations, Josie Pye is more of a direct bully towards Anne, snarky and mean. As we just talked about in our episode about the unlikable girls, Josie isn't actually on the page very much in the book, her Pye nature mostly being implied in passing rather than in direct opposition to Anne. I think it makes sense that most adaptations do this. Anne of Green Gables, the book, doesn't have a strong plot structure with a clear villain to move it along at a clip. So it makes sense that in order for the story to have a narrative push to it, we have to give Josie a bigger role. This Josie is obsessed with Gilbert, who is not into it, and Josie is clearly threatened by Gilbert's immediate attention to Anne. Helen Belay is appropriately snotty when she's being Josie, and she makes Josie's insecurity a little more obvious. Like, you don't actually feel for her, but you almost want to if she'd just be a little bit nicer. And she does dare Anne to walk the ridgepole. Instead of Charlie Sloane, they've given Moody Spurgeon McPherson a bigger role, mostly as Gilbert's buddy and comic relief. He's not in competition for Anne's attention, but he gives Gilbert someone to bounce off of in the school scenes. He's also kind of obsessed with learning magic tricks. And I wonder whether Kat chose Moody rather than Charlie because Moody is a very comic name.
Yeah, I have to think so, right? And also, I think because of that funny, recognizable name, it's just like a more memorable character generally. Like, I think if you were someone who read the books once or saw the miniseries once, you might have more of a passing familiarity with that name as opposed to Charlie Sloane. So, Jordan Hall plays Gilbert as kind of like your cool student athlete who would be awkward and slightly cringe if it wasn't for his good looks and athletic ability. His Gilbert is very quickly smitten with Anne, and his attempts to connect with her are sweet and nervous and a little bit awkward, kind of like, random push-ups and finger guns and stage whispers. Slate smashing scene plays out just like we want it to, and even though we know that it's going to happen, everyone in the audience gasped when the slate broke. Gilbert spent a lot of the play clearly trying to impress Anne and is frequently stung by Anne's ongoing rejection of him. Gilbert's character, I think, is a good example of how the play is both set in the past in Anne's time, but also does feel modern. All the characters are sort of pulled into this story from a modern day frame. So what we are seeing isn't Gilbert Blythe, it's an actor playing the modern day reader of Anne of Green Gables who is doing his version of Gilbert as he's experiencing the book, right?
Yes.
So yes, there are finger guns and it works. It's great. Don't be mad at the finger guns. It's so cute and fun.
It's a little weird to say it like this, but it works. He's read the book and he's like, oh, Gilbert is like me.
Gilbert's
and so he's playing Gilbert.
Yeah.
He's playing Gilbert in that way where he's like, this is what I would do.
Okay, podcast audio medium, but just so you know, Ray and I have both been doing finger guns at each other for the past minute or so.
But what's interesting about the meta nature of this version is that it lets the actors also do things like call out the inappropriateness of Mr. Phillips' relationship with Prissy Andrews. And it's a little rewriting of the original, but for a modern audience, I think it hits. The skeeviness of Mr. Phillips is one that modern readers have twigged to for sure. We spent a whole episode talking about it when we talked about the teachers of Green Gables. And it seems right for a modern adaptation to reckon a little bit with it. Do you remember, Kelly, when we watched the 1985 miniseries with Alice, when Mr. Phillips obviously is hitting on Prissy, Alice was like, ew, what is up with that? That's gross, which appropriate, right?
Yes. And it is. You watch it now and it's like, oh, it's so smarmy.
Yes. So in this adaptation, Jane notes that Prissy's lack of academic skills could possibly be related to Mr. Phillips fawning rather than teaching her.
Mm-hmm.
Anne volunteers to tutor Prissy instead, and Prissy shuts down Mr. Phillips. It's not canon, which our Mrs. Lynde chorus member objects to, but it fixes a little bit of a wrong that we can't help but cheer for.
Yeah.
The raspberry cordial scene, absolute perfection. Very true to the book, and Julie Lumsden's growing drunkenness and her confusion about Anne's rambling storytelling is maybe my new favorite drunk Diana portrayal.
It was so good. It was so funny. We were howling.
Dying laughing. And then Anne and Diana's heartbroken goodbye is both a little comedic, but also heartfelt. And Matthew and Marilla's support of Anne is a consolation in her heartbreak.
Yeah. There's a ridgepole scene, and that takes place during Anne and Diana's estrangement. They do it really beautifully in slow motion with all the kids sort of reacting as Anne balances, almost gets it, and then ultimately falls. That is then what leads to Anne's suspension from school by Mr. Phillips. And then Marilla is still angry about Anne's suspension from school when she discovers that her amethyst brooch is missing. So it's a little interesting. These plot points in the book are not really in the same order necessarily, but this does a really good job of building the dramatic arc for the play. So reordering them does work. And it's all these touch points that we know and love. Kat Sandler, our playwright, of course, chose to combine the amethyst brooch moment alongside Anne's saving of Minnie May. Perhaps we think to give some additional stakes to that moment. It's a little bit rushed. Anne sort of like quickly makes up a story after Marilla doesn't believe her. Anne kind of initially protests, said, didn't have anything to do with your brooch. And then Marilla said, you have to tell me what happened and make something up. Marilla, of course, immediately realizes that's a lie. Then Marilla, in this version, storms out to go see the premiere speak. She's still angry that Anne lied to her about the brooch. And now she's threatening to send her away if the brooch isn't returned before she gets back. So at this point, Anne is really at her lowest. There's no Diana, and there's possibly no more Green Gables. And so it's at this really dramatic moment that we break for intermission.
And when we return, Kat adds this little moment that isn't text in the book, but it is so effective. Anne is sitting in the kitchen, internally racked with sadness, and Matthew is sitting silently near her. And then he starts to sing a bit of a folk song called Fare Thee Well. It's also known as Dink's song for the first person on record who sang it, an African-American woman named Dink. Matthew is clearly a little embarrassed to sing, but he's also offering Anne the only gift he can think of in that moment. Anne is also the only person he would probably ever sing in front of. Matthew says that his mother would sing this song to him and Marilla. And the song is sad. It's about goodbyes. And Matthew says that it's also about love. And Anne recognizes it for the gift that it is from Matthew. It's really a beautiful moment in their relationship, and you can see how they are kindred spirits.
Yeah, it's a lovely song. It's one that I was a little bit familiar with before the show. Hearing it in this context was really, really moving.
Kelly, do you know enough of it to sing a little bit of it?
Yeah, I do know the song a little bit. So it goes, if I had wings like Noah's dove, I'd fly the river to the one I love. Fare thee well, my honey, fare thee well.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's a pretty, pretty song. So the spell of the moment is broken when Diana rushes in with the news about Minnie May. Matthew heads out for the doctor, and Anne grabs the bottle of Ipecac, where it had been waiting for us all this time on the tree stump. Minnie May in the play is only a little bundle of blankets on a table, but the action still feels very tense as Anne doses her with the Ipecac. After the doctor arrives, praising Anne for saving Minnie May, Matthew leads the exhausted Anne home. Marilla, having found the brooch in the lining of her coat while she was out, and having heard about Anne saving Minnie May, reconciles quickly with Anne. She apologizes for doubting her, and she and Matthew ask Anne to stay permanently at Green Gables. Miss Barry, of course, is appropriately contrite, and Anne and Diana's friendship resumes just where it left off.
I'm not even sure that the amethyst brooch needed to be here to give that moment more stakes, but it does give a little bit more resonance to Matthew singing to Anne, kind of under this threat of her maybe being sent away.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a powerful moment between Anne and Matthew anyway, though. And it does kind of draw out that narrative around the being on trial and making more of that narrative tension there, and then kicks up Anne and Marilla's relationship a notch once we kind of go through that together. It does work overall. It's not bad, kind of only a minor quibble about whether we actually needed it when it feels a little rushed.
Yeah, I think it's such an important scene in the book. We talked about it a lot in our Marilla episode, how this was a pretty profound turning point in her characterization. And so, knowing from our discussions with Kat that she wanted to give Marilla a bit of a character arc as well, I wonder if that was something she wanted to be sure to include in that way. But I agree with you. There was so much happening kind of all at once. It didn't have a lot of space to breathe. And I just think it's the medium. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're doing
Yeah.
this is a 2-hour play. We're not going to be able to give everything the big thudding beat that you feel when you read it in a book.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So when Anne returns to school, we get Miss Stacy on the stage. She has spectacular puffed sleeves, and Jennifer Villaverde plays her as enthusiastic and inspiring as we could have wished. And this school scene is used to jump the story forward a few years to Anne's final year of school, sort of like a montage style, showing Anne writing enormous creative fiction projects and engaging in classroom debates. And Miss Stacy gets this excellent line as they talk about whether or not girls can vote or run for office. She says, quote, "You want to be ready to take action when the time comes. Find your purpose. Think about how you want to face the world and ensure you face it boldly." Still excellent advice. So not only does Miss Stacy challenge her students, she helps Anne find her authentic voice, reassuring her after Anne reads what is clearly yet another purple prose, gothic, romantic story that she's written for class, that there is some beauty in the present, in the here and now.
And then we have a shift. As Miss Stacy is encouraging Anne to write about someone real in the present, and Anne protests, saying, "I'm not extraordinary. My story won't ever mean anything to anyone." Miss Stacy responds with, "You and your story will mean so much to many people in many places for years and years to come." And at that, some of the chorus members bring different copies of the book of Anne of Green Gables to place around the tree stumps. That sheer variety of covers giving mute testimony to the truth of that statement. And yeah, it's a little on the nose, but sitting in a theater surrounded by so many people who love Anne's story and who have come to see this production that is written in such loving homage to a story published almost 120 years ago, it is also so true. This truth feels really powerful and magical, the way this story has connected so many different people over time. And as this moment happens, Miss Stacy emphasizing to Anne, "Write your story now." The chorus members gradually begin replacing the old-fashioned props and costumes with modern ones. They roll out the old-fashioned stove and roll in a modern one and a refrigerator. Miss Stacy puts on a bike helmet and rushes out. And of course, our Mrs. Lind chorus member is frantically asking, what are they doing? Protesting that the book takes place in the 1890s and she loves it just as it is. She even had a themed wedding and a tattoo of Green Gables. And honestly, we maybe feel a little seen by that. But the rest of the chorus reassures her that it's the same Anne and the same story. And they encourage everyone to take a deep breath and imagine Anne now. And that's for all the folks that want to keep Anne preserved in amber. After all, we already have that version of Anne perfectly preserved in her book. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why so many generations keep discovering Anne, and imagining the story taking place today emphasizes the timelessness of her character.
So Anne reappears in her room in overalls and with her red hair in long French braids. But this time, she's listening to some loud rock music underneath the fairy lights. She yells down to Marilla that it's Diana's newest song, and then she puts on headphones. Matthew and Marilla are downstairs fussing in the kitchen. Marilla is complaining about her eyes as she does some paperwork, and Matthew is trying to get a word in edgewise, and Marilla yells for Anne to come down to dinner. Mrs. Rachel bustles in, wearing purple Lululemon and carrying a purple Stanley mug, and the audience, including us, absolutely died laughing.
Honestly, every time I now take a step from my own faux Stanley, I picture Maeve Beattie's face as Mrs. Rachel when she does that very thing. The expression on her face, it's so comic.
She's so funny, that one. Oh my gosh. She has charisma for days. So, in all this bustle, we learn that Matthew's combine is broken. It's been a terrible quarter for the farm, and Rachel is now suggesting that they just sell the farm to Gordy Pye and retire. Anne is moaning about the assignment from Miss Stacy to write about a real person, and she's wondering what her purpose is. She tells them that Diana's purpose is to be a famous singer-songwriter, but Diana's mother says Diana's purpose is to marry rich and have a bunch of kids. And Mrs. Rachel and Marilla spar a little bit about this. Mrs. Rachel said Mrs. Barry just wants Diana's life to be easy. And Marilla points out that, well, she's an old maid and she's doing just fine. After Mrs. Rachel leaves, Marilla expands on this point a little bit to Anne. She tells her she chose this life and she loves it. And Anne buckles down to work on her assignment. We jump forward to school and a conversation with Miss Stacy about everyone's post-graduation plans. Diana says her mom wants her to be a dental hygienist so she can meet a dentist. Everyone laughed. And that her mom doesn't think the performing arts are a real career path. Jane wants to learn a trade and Gilbert wants to go to Oxford. Anne admits that she kind of does too. After a moment with some kind of deep eye contact between Anne and Gilbert, Josie breaks in to ask Anne if she thinks the Cuthberts, who aren't even her real family, are really going to pay for her to go to Oxford. So, rude.
Very rude.
School ends with signing up for the school talent show. Anne and Diana and Jane sign up as a band that they've called the Cherry Blossoms to sing an original composition by Diana. And it turns out that Miss Stacy's helmet from earlier is because she now rides an electric scooter, and she rides it right over to Green Gables to suggest to the Cuthberts that Anne should be applying to colleges, as she'd very likely win a scholarship. There's a scholarship to Oxford, called, of course, the Avery Scholarship, and Miss Stacy hands Marilla one of Anne's assignments for her to read, and mentions that Anne talks about them at school a lot. And Marilla assumes that Anne only talks about Matthew, since they are the kindred spirits, and she is not.
The day of the talent show is here, and Matthew arrives with a big box of something special for Anne. Marilla is trying to hustle them all out the door when Diana comes down to say that Anne is not coming. They all run up to Anne's room and find that it is immediately obvious why, because she has dyed her hair green. And this is very clever. Instead of Anne buying hair dye from a peddler, we have a little flash to Prissy Andrews hawking hair dye on TikTok. And it's so funny because that is the perfect modern equivalent.
Reagan, the number of silly things I have purchased from the TikTok shop, I would have bought everything from traveling peddlers if I had lived in Ellen Montgomery's time. They would have come by and just unloaded their wares in my living room, and I would have been powerless to stop them.
You would have been like, yes,
I need all of those things.
Well, Marilla is laughing. Matthew comes in with the box and offers it as a consolation to Anne. We don't see what's in the box, but he clarifies puff sleeves as he gestures to it, and Anne is overcome with emotion as she hugs him. Diana offers to fix Anne's hair. The talent show starts with Moody Spurgeon doing a magic act, and he is followed by Gilbert, who will be doing a haiku spoken word.
Questionable.
It's as cringe as could be, and clearly it's his lovelorn grand gesture to Anne. And it is so bad, it's kind of amazing.
Yep.
He is followed by the Cherry Blossoms. They are all in pop punk gear. Anne is wearing a dress with puffed sleeves and Doc Martens, and her hair is cut in a cute, trendy bob and with neon green streaks running through it. It's so perfectly girly pop. They sing a pop rock version of Fare Thee Well, the song that Matthew had sung to Anne. And the energy from this performance was absolutely electric in the audience. It was so fun. They had a disco ball going. They had all the lights. It was great.
People were so locked in when we saw it. It was really a joyful moment. So post-talent show, Anne and Diana wander through the woods and they stand on the bridge over the river. Anne is imagining, of course, something dramatically romantic and wonderful, and Diana is trying to get her attention because she has something to tell her when all of a sudden the bridge breaks and Anne falls into the river. Diana runs off to get help, and as Anne clings to a branch, Gilbert comes rowing by. Anne tries to spurn his help, but eventually, of course, does give in and gets in the boat. Gilbert blurts out his apology to Anne and asks to be friends, and then he sort of rambles on about why Anne is so awesome. They seem to be getting somewhere when he leans in to kiss her, and Anne freaks out, tells him that unless she explicitly asks him to kiss her, not to make any assumptions, and then they fight, arguing, of course, about who is smarter. At the same time, Matthew and Marilla are arguing back at Green Gables about why Marilla didn't give Anne any praise about the concert, and whether Matthew should have given her the dress, and whether Anne should be applying to colleges. Matthew observes that Marilla is afraid to love Anne, and she retorts that she's actually afraid to lose Anne. She's afraid that if Anne applies to schools, she'll go away and never return. Matthew pulls out the assignment that Miss Stacy had given them that Marilla hadn't read yet. It's about an inspiring person. And Anne has written about Marilla, specifically about how she's made Green Gables a home for Anne and how she aspires to be like her. I just loved this scene, Reagan. You know, it's something that we couldn't have gotten in Ella Montgomery's book because that version of Matthew and Marilla, they don't talk to each other like these two do. But in this more modern version, they can have the conversation. And so our understanding of those characters becomes all the richer for it.
I agree. I think there's something lovely because it's a way of illuminating what is it about Marilla that has been resistant. That in the book, we get in kind of occasional peeks into her thoughts, but never in her actions. She holds her actions so close to her chest, and fleshing out her relationship with Matthew in this way, the way a sibling can call you out on stuff that nobody else can, I think is a lovely way of getting to that.
Yeah, very much so. So then Anne and Diana come in, and Marilla tells her that she should apply to all the schools she wants, and they'll try to figure out the money for her to go. After Diana sort of explains the river debacle and Anne declares she will never be romantic ever again, we get another favorite Matthew line. He says, "Don't give up all your romance, Anne. Keep a little of it." And it's just lovely to me to see how they wove in the new with the old. You know, a line like that transcends time. It doesn't need to be updated. It works beautifully whether it's 1885 or 2025. The show did a splendid job of holding on to those timeless moments.
Yeah. Kat worked in so much of Maud's beautiful and poetic language, whether having the characters speak it directly, and those lines they still hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or having the book club members narrate it as if they are reciting from the book. It highlighted so much of what we love about Maud's writing.
So then we jump to waiting for exam results to be posted, where Anne and Gilbert have tied, of course, for top marks. Anne arrives back at home to see a big envelope waiting for her, and everyone is too scared to open it. They finally get it open, and Matthew declares 3 cheers for Anne Shirley, winner of the Avery. So Kat really does know all of our favorite lines. That one is direct from the 1985 movie, right?
Yes. I love that. It's kind of like a little Easter egg for those of us who love that movie, right?
Yep.
Then we jump to Anne's 18th birthday, and Diana invites everyone, including the audience, to sing happy birthday to Anne, which we all did. Should be kind of hokey, but honestly, it wasn't. Like by that point, as an audience, we are all in it. We are telling this story too.
100%.
Everyone is there, even Josie, and she volunteers to take a picture of everyone all together, mostly so that there isn't photographic evidence that she was there. Gil congratulates Anne on the Avery scholarship and gives her a gift. It's a gift certificate for swimming lessons. Well played, Gilbert. Prissy Andrews gifts Anne her artisanal beauty products and rambles about looking for rustic venues for her new spa wedding business. Mrs. Rachel presents Anne with a knitted hat that looks like a carrot, and Diana takes Anne off to share some ice cream, just the two of them. Diana and Anne are sharing ice cream and being nostalgic, preparing to be separated when Anne goes to Oxford. Diana shares that her mom has changed her mind after the talent show, and so Diana will be able to go to school for music. Anne worries that Diana will meet another bosom friend or soulmate, and Diana gently shares that it's always been Anne. Anne doesn't pick up at first what Diana is putting down, but then she catches on. And Diana says she doesn't need anything to be different between them because their friendship is too important, but she needed Anne to know. Anne has the best response. She says that however Diana loves her is the best compliment she's ever gotten. And I'm sure there are people out there who are going to be upset about this scene. And while it's not canon to the book, it's also not canon either, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a long discussion about this way back when we did an episode about Diana, and whether or not Maud specifically wrote their friendship to have a romantic intensity beyond the boundaries of friendship. I think many people have read into their relationship in that way. Several of the graphic novel adaptations also include some version of a romantic relationship between Anne and Diana. If Anne and Diana were contemporary in a time and place where same-sex relationships were common and safe, it doesn't strike me as uncharacteristic of either of them that either or both could fall in love with the other. Maud's characters were constrained by their time and place, but modern characters would have more freedom to explore their emotions and relationships. And I can't help but think of kids in the audience who will feel seen in Diana's experience and feel supported in Anne's lovely response.
Absolutely. And I'm never going to quibble about an Anne and Diana romance. I mean, for one thing, Diana's lines in the play are no different than what she says in the book. You know, she and Anne both profess their love for each other on the page, and it is an intensely romantic friendship as it's written. So when this version of Diana tells Anne that she loves her, well, of course she does. And then one thing I particularly love about this portrayal is that Anne's response to Diana is just pitch perfect, and it's kind of a wonderful script for how you want to respond to a friend when they come out to you. So hang on, everyone. We are coming to the part that we all dread anytime that there is an adaptation of Anne. Matthew and Marilla are sort of bantering in the kitchen about Matthew being right to want to keep Anne, and Anne comes down and offers to help Matthew with the cows. And as they leave together, the chorus members start narrating the passage from the book that starts, quote, Anne always remembered the peaceful beauty and fragrant calm of that morning, the last moments before true sorrow touched her life. And then Josie Pye's chorus member remarks that maybe they don't have to do this part, but it's clear that they do have to. They keep narrating the action as Anne and Matthew walk slowly together, and Anne is realizing that Matthew looks very tired. Matthew tries to play it off and challenges her to race back to the house, but he only gets a few steps before he grabs his arm and he tells Anne to get Marilla. Anne yells for Marilla, but Matthew falls, and as Anne grabs him, he tells her how proud he is of her.
And we are all in tears as an audience.
Yeah. Since the show, of course, is intended for kids, Matthew's heart attack is subtle. Adults are going to understand what's happening, but it's not scary. It's not too scary for younger kids. The chorus members all narrate the gathering for Matthew's funeral, noting that Anne and Marilla filled the house with Scots roses, Matthew's favorite, and they use the exact same branches of flowers that they had used earlier to create the White Way of Delight. Marilla stands in front of the mourners and she starts to sing Fare Thee Well, her voice breaking, till Anne joins her to finish the song. The mourners leave, but Josie brings Anne a little present. She's framed the picture from Anne's birthday, and she shares that she wishes she had more pictures of her mom before she died. So it's this nice little redeeming moment for Josie and a lovely gift for Anne. Mrs. Lynde stops by to visit, bringing a casserole and some kombucha she brewed herself.
Because of course she brews her own kombucha.
Course. And they're waiting for Marilla to get back from the eye specialist. Mrs. Lynde drops the intel that Gilbert Blythe is taking a gap year before college and has started a tutoring business. She also drops the knowledge that his father used to be Marilla's beau until they fought and Marilla wouldn't forgive him. Marilla comes home and she shares that she could go blind soon if she doesn't give up reading and that she can't afford the surgery. She thinks they'll have to sell Green Gables to Gordy Pye while it's still in decent shape. Mrs. Lynde quickly offers that Marilla can come and live with her, calling her a kindred spirit and bosom friend. And we love this for them because, of course, they are. Maybe not in the exact same way that Anne and Diana are kindred spirits, but Mrs. Lynde and Marilla are each other's person too. And of course, with all this change, Anne is distressed to think of ever leaving Green Gables.
We see Anne coming home from visiting the rose bush that she has planted for Matthew, and she runs into Gilbert. And like the book Reconciliation, Anne apologizes awkwardly, and Gilbert says that she can have a summer job with his new company, Clean Slate Tutors, if ever she wants to. And then Anne asks Gilbert to kiss her, and they do. As Anne Kelly is totally laughing because, of course, we always squee when Anne and Gilbert kiss. As Anne sits in the kitchen in Green Gables, pondering her choices, the chorus members start to argue about what should happen next. Mrs. Lynde's chorus member argues that Anne has a duty, or maybe it's an opportunity, to stay and help Marilla. Jane Andrews' chorus member says, of course Anne has to go to Oxford. Everyone debates if they should stick to the book or not. And then they decide that it must be Anne's choice to decide. It's her story. She should be the one to tell it.
This was another one of my favorite moments in terms of how they handled that sort of modern adaptation aspect of it. Because I think in a contemporary setting, when it's, thankfully, very common for women to go to college, the idea of not going is actually more controversial than the idea of going, right? It's a little bit of a reversal of what it would have been at the time of the novel. So in order to help the audience understand Anne's decision, the factors she's really weighing, the chorus sort of plays it out for us and then leaves that final choice to Anne, underlining, of course, her agency.
And what's interesting about that moment is It's the only one where Anne gets a little meta, where she turns to the chorus members and says, I can decide.
Yeah.
And then we see that she does. Anne tells Marilla that she's deferring her scholarship to Oxford, just for now. Anne suggests that they let Prissy rent part of the land for her spa wedding venue while Green Gables stays intact.
By the way, this is, of course, exactly what they needed to do to save Green Gables. I am shocked that Anne and Marilla didn't come up with this plan originally.
I mean, the land around Green Gables is absolutely perfect for a wedding venue, right? I would have loved to get married there.
Yes.
Marilla, of course, does not want Anne to sacrifice her future, but Anne says her purpose right now is to stay with her in the place they love the best. And Marilla tells Anne that she loves her and is putting Green Gables in her name too. She says that even though she told Anne not to call her aunt, maybe they can imagine they are a family after all. And Anne says they don't have to imagine it. There's a long hug between them, and then Anne runs off past Mrs. Lynde to tell Diana. The chorus members start to gather as Anne sits looking out of her bedroom window, and they start using some of Maud's beautiful descriptions to paint the picture of what Anne must see out her window. And Anne closes the play with one of our very favorite lines. Dear old world, you are very lovely, and I am very glad to be alive in you. And then cue all of the waterworks as we gave an absolutely thunderous standing ovation. We were totally bowled over by the last few scenes. Even though we knew how it would all end, the emotion of it really lived on the stage. And having the chorus members be so invested in telling this story well, it felt like a love letter to all of us who love this book and love this character. It was a remarkable thing to see on the stage.
It was a dream. It was an absolute dream to see this show. There was so much creativity throughout, and it was just really something special. Kindred Spirits, if you haven't seen it yet, or if you thought you maybe couldn't get there, I hope this encourages you to try. It is well worth the trip. It's astonishing. It was so beautiful.
The alchemy of everything coming together. I don't think we can do it justice just by describing it to you. The alchemy of everything that was happening on stage together just created something that was gold.
Yeah.
Well, so Kelly, what did you think of some of the more technical stagecraft elements, like the set design and costumes and lighting? Like this is something that you know a lot about.
Well, I think this creative team was remarkable. Overall, the staging is deceptively simple, right? Which helps it feel kind of accessible and contemporary. But everything that does exist on the stage is just exquisitely detailed. So, like, you have the House of Green Gables itself, and it's just scaffolding. It's just an outline of a house. But the kitchen and Anne's bedroom are both kitted out with all the details that let us know instantly this is Green Gables. And it has the feel of it, right? It's homey and warm, but lived in and, a little faded. It is precisely what you think it is. And as minimalistic as the set was, there was still just tons to look at, right? Like we were saying before, there are these sort of Easter egg props that are sprinkled throughout. It's kind of this splendid way of nodding to the fact that this is a story we know really well. And in fact, when Reagan and I were sitting in the theater ahead of the show, we were looking at all those prop pieces and nudging each other like, oh, there's the raspberry cordial, there's the slate, because we knew that they would be part of the show eventually. It was just sort of setting us up for what we were about to see. I think that they found a lot of really fun humor in the costumes and in the sets. We talked about Stephen how he took on the Jane Andrews character, and he's sort of wearing this like strangely poorly fitting dress throughout. So it always, that kind of keeps things light and fun. They use that dolly for Matthew's buggy. There's this way that they are asking us to like almost like play dress up or like play make believe right alongside all the actors. And that was a really just cleverly done. And of course, all of that was just like gloriously enhanced by the lighting, which was taking its cues with those similar sort of like watercolor effects. It was just honestly beautiful inside and out.
It really was. And it was very fun that anytime Anne started to lose her temper, the lights would glow red on her that really that really emphasized how much fury she was channeling.
Yeah, and I think that it's, again, when we think about this adaptation as something that is very explicitly for kids, there are cues like that are really intended, I think, to help some of those younger audience members or first-time theater goers like understand what theater can do.
Mm-hmm.
So, Reagan, what did you make of the way the play was sort of adapted in terms of plot points and story beats?
We've talked about a few kind of as we've gone. There's
Yeah,
a couple other things that sort of occur to me. One was one thing that was done a little differently that I think with the updating to the modern setting, the modern time in the last part of the play, we also have to update a little bit of Gilbert's role in Anne staying in Green Gables. That grand gesture of him giving up the Avonlea school for Anne to be able to stay close to home isn't needed here the
sure.
way that it would be in Anne's time. And so I think they were kind of smart to just leave it out instead of trying to twist it into something that would make sense without being like weirdly patriarchal, right? Like Anne doesn't
I
need
think that's right.
Gilbert to save her. Gilbert didn't save her in the book. He just made it a little bit easier as an example of the goodness of his heart. And that goodness is still apparent here, but we don't need to give him this hero moment because it just doesn't make quite as much sense in a modern setting, right? And then, I think scenes are always going to have to be cut or condensed to fit on the stage. And so we could certainly quibble about what Kat left out or put in, but really something is always going to have to go. I think that one little byproduct, similar to the Gilbert moment of ending the play in the modern time period, is that the piece of Marilla being unable to run the farm with her eyesight going just doesn't work quite as straightforwardly as it does in Anne's time, right? There's just so many ways that she would still be able to function really well. There's so many technology pieces that could come into play, right? And the choice is still hard for Anne, but it's quite easy to see that this doesn't mean that Anne can't go to college at all, right? So I
Right.
think that's why they must have made it Oxford rather than Redmond that she'd be going to, because it's a more significant dream to give up or put on pause. If like the temptation to poke plot holes in Anne putting off her year at Redmond, well, I don't know, in a modern era, she could just take some classes online until next year, right? She's not really giving up as much of a dream. Like it doesn't feel as much of a sacrifice.
Yeah, and if it's 2025 and you live on PEI and you want to go to school in Nova Scotia, that is a fairly quick drive home on the weekends and things like that. Like you can still, maybe you can't commute, but that's a lot closer. So having it be Oxford, like literally across the ocean, and also to have sort of that layer of prestige about it as well, it does make it seem like a more significant dream.
Yeah. So I think it still works overall, but it does feel like the plot has to do a few little contortions in order to
Mhm.
have it make sense in the contemporary setting. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it works, but I think I could feel a little bit of like that making it fit.
I think that's right. Nothing too distracting. It's just
No.
the kind of thing, it's like if you really start to think about it, you're like, wait, really?
Yeah,
But it's
right.
fine.
I mean, I poke bigger plot holes. That's a fun hobby for me is to poke plot holes
Oh,
in
I
like
know it.
movies and stuff. So uh it's not significant. I just noticed that. Kel, did you have any standout actors?
God, everyone was so great. I mean, it's a strong cast. No, everyone was just right there in it. And you could tell that they loved the story they were telling. On reflecting and talking about it, I mean, Jennifer Villaverde, the way she played, oh, I don't know, like 20 different people. And everyone with like completely different energy, completely different, just like posture, voice. She completely embodied so many different folks. It was really incredible. Everyone was phenomenal. Hard to single someone out.
I know. Well, speaking of that, that makes me think Josue Labucane. He starts as the stage manager. He was so good at transforming to all of his different roles. When he came on as Mr. Phillips, I sincerely thought he was an entirely new actor. I
Yes.
did not realize he was also playing Moody Spurgeon until you pointed out that Moody and Mr. Phillips did not share the same stage.
Yeah, I was like, it's the same guy. And you were like, what? Yeah.
I
No,
was
he was
like,
great. He was great.
he's totally so completely different. I wouldn't want to leave anyone out by identifying a favorite, but I will say that Tim Campbell's Matthew is so genuinely lovely.
Yeah.
He gives Matthew this little sense of humor, and his relationship with both Marilla and Anne is beautiful. As we've mentioned, Maeve Beatty as Mrs. Rachel, every other line reading from her made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, she's having the best time up there. I will say that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And this idea that she's the book club member who loves this story and now gets a chance to be in her favorite story
Mhm.
and is fully 100% in, it rolls off her.
Yeah.
We've already raved about Caroline Toll as Anne, and she is truly astounding. Like her Anne is kinetic and slightly anxious, and while she's wildly dramatic, she's also very grounded in her relationship. She and Tim Campbell have an excellent father-daughter chemistry, and her relationship with Sarah Dodd's Marilla also feels really fleshed out. Marilla's arc is beautifully acted by
Yeah.
Sarah Dodd, where you see that gradual unbending over time into her love for Anne.
Everyone was tremendous, truly. So, Reagan, is there any scene that wasn't in the play that you would have liked to see, right? If we could have had our dream version of this play, which would have been a cool 4 hours long,
Right,
what would
right,
you
right,
wanted
right.
to be
Exactly.
included?
It's like how originally Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was play. You had to go
Two
see it
nights.
two
Yeah.
nights in
I
order
would
to
I
have.
would do the 2-night version of this for sure. I'll come back a
Yeah,
second day, no problem.
yeah, absolutely. I think I might have loved more of a true Lily Maid scene where she's actually play acting Elaine and you see her getting her friends involved in the imaginative play. And I think that's just because it's such a particular example of how Anne's imagination is both an integral part of her and the way that she's impacted her friends with her
Mhm.
imagination and pulled them along with her. I think that Falling in the River works as a way to get us to the boat scene with Anne and Gilbert, but I missed the creative play part. We know that Anne has a big imagination, mostly through her like verbal pronouncements. And that's
Right.
true in the book too. A lot of her imagination is in the stories she's telling. But the Lily Maid is such a great moment of Anne's imagination in action. I would have loved that. How about you?
I think for me, the scene that I missed, and I just would have loved to see what this creative team would have done with this. I would have loved to see Anne and Diana's trip to Charlottetown with Miss Josephine Barry. And now I completely understand why Aunt Jo was not in the play, right? Like, we had to make cuts for time, and the Miss Stacy character was doing a lot of that same sort of character work for Anne. But I love that Aunt Jo is there for young Anne as a lifeline to places beyond sort of just rural farm life. And Anne's relationship with her is part of what allows Anne to like dream big enough for Queens and Redmond College. Plus, it's just like a super fun scene, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would love to see their version of like, yeah, the getting out of Avonlea, what that would look like.
Right. And Aunt Jo would be such a fantastic character to
Oh,
see on the stage, right?
and I'm sure that Jennifer Villaverde could play her too.
She absolutely could play her. Oh my gosh. And you can't have Aunt Jo without first jumping on Aunt Jo, which is also another great scene.
Another great scene. Yep.
Kindred Spirits, as you can tell, we really adored this production, and we are so grateful to Kat Sandler, to the entire creative team behind the show, and to the Stratford Festival for creating it and for inviting us into the fold. We've truly enjoyed getting to know the amazing artists behind this production. We hope you all have too. If you have seen the show or plan to, please tell us about it. We would love to discuss it with other fans. We'd love to hear what you think about it. As we wrap up today's show, it is well and truly summer now. School's out, vacations are happening. There's lots of long, lazy nights that are perfect for reading. I'm thinking about Anne right before her year of Queens, when she was determined to set her studies aside and just enjoy the summer. So we are going to do that, and we'd love to add to your summer reading lists. For our Inspired by Anne today, let's talk about what we are reading this summer. Kelly?
Oh, gladly. Well, I have been reading a ton this summer already, and I do have a few books I think you all would absolutely love. My first summer read was actually Rilla of Ingleside. We are going to focus on that book in our next season. It is every bit as wonderful as I remembered. Unfortunately, in many ways, it is still very relevant to current political events. I know we are just going to have some amazing discussions of this starting next season. And if it's been a minute since you've read it, I think it's time, guys. I also read God of the Woods by Liz Moore for one of my book clubs, and that is a great book. It really sneaks up on you. You kind of think you're reading this family drama set at a summer camp for the super rich, and then it kind of takes this hard left turn into a mystery, and then it like evolves into something else entirely. It's thrilling and juicy, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it.
Ooh, I'm writing that one down.
And then to kind of riff on the theme of adaptations and updated classics, I would also love to invite everyone to read James by Percival Everett, which is the Huckleberry Finn story told from the perspective of Jim, who was the man who was enslaved by Huck's neighbors and who runs away with him. And James is engrossing, it is beautiful, it is heartbreaking, and it really made me see the classic American story in a totally different light. I actually put James down about halfway through to reread Huckleberry Finn. More like a reskim, to be honest. And I kind of do recommend that too, but it's not necessary to enjoy James. You can enjoy it without, as long as you kind of basically remember Huckleberry Finn from high school, you'll get there. And then I guess my last recommendation for you all book-wise is The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I'm not totally finished with it yet, so maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I'm obsessed. It's so good. It's kind of a riff on like the golden age of mysteries, so sort of like a Agatha Christie, Lord Peter Wimsey, Sherlock Holmes energy. And then like our play that we were discussing today, it's a book within a book, and the mysteries within the book start to sort of seep out into the framing story. Just
Ooh.
really, really cleverly done. And now that I'm thinking about it, God of the Woods is also kind of a story within a story. So maybe that's just my theme for the summer.
Okay.
I think so. And for that matter, I also saw a version of Hamlet this summer, which had a framing device around it. So it ended up being a play within a play, Hamlet within a play, right? Because Hamlet has the play he sets up for his uncle to plays the thing. So it was just like a true Russian nesting doll of Shakespeare. So with that, I will also recommend that everyone go out into your local communities this summer and go see a Shakespeare in the Park performance. You have no idea the shenanigans that your local theater groups are getting up to unless you go.
Yeah, absolutely. As for reading, I recently broke out of a reading rut that I'd kind of gotten stuck in, and I zipped through a couple books in short order. I just finished The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. So that's some cozy fantasy vibes for you. I'd love to spend more time in the world. That's a very sweet fantasy book. I read some more books in series that I already really enjoy. I read the last two books in the Bells of London series by Mimi Matthews for some Regency romance.
Don't you just love those?
Oh, they were fun. They were so sweet. I love
Yeah.
all of those characters. Really great period romance books that isn't too precious about like the period piece part of it.
Totally. Yeah.
I also just finished Kills Well with Others by Deanna Rayburn. For Kelly and I, she is one of our favorite mystery writers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is about 4 older women who are retired assassins, and they are on one last job. It is the sequel to Killers of a Certain Age, which was another fun action mystery with that same crew. Very fun. And currently, I'm almost finished with a short story collection by Naomi Novik called Buried Deep. I bought it when we were on our podcast retreat weekend, Kelly.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, with that little tiny bookshop in Idlewild.
Oh, of course. God, I love that place. It's like a
Yes.
perfectly curated bookshop. Speakeasy Books.
Speakeasy Books in Idlewild. Yes.
Gorgeous.
And I don't often gravitate towards short stories, but I love Naomi Novik, and this is great. She wrote a couple of our favorite series for both of us. One is the Scholomance trilogy, just like Dark Academia, and there's a short story in there from the Scholomance universe. Great. And she wrote one of our other favorite series for kind of our little crew of us and our husbands, the Temeraire universe, which is dragons in the Napoleonic Wars universe.
It's so cool. It's so much cooler than it sounds. I promise everyone.
Yeah. But Kelly, you are going to love it. This short story, it's the one I'm in the middle of. Mm-hmm. It takes place in that universe, and it's Pride and Prejudice. But Elizabeth Bennet is the captain of a dragon named Wollstonecraft.
Oh,
it's Pride and Prejudice, but dragons.
Pride and Prejudice, but dragons. Oh my goodness.
You will love this book. You don't have to have read those books to enjoy those short stories.
And did you say, wait, that Elizabeth Bennet's dragon is named Wollstonecraft?
Yes.
I cannot. That is so perfect. Naomi Novik is a glorious genius, and I want to live in her brain.
Amazing. Every single story I've read, I have loved so far. I'm almost done with it.
Kindred Spirits, thank you so much for listening to us in our 4th season. We are going to take a little break over the summer. Clearly, we have to get caught up on our reading.
Yep.
And then this fall, we will be tackling Rilla of Ingleside for our 5th season. So everybody dust it off if it's been a minute and get reading. If there's any episodes of the pod that you've missed, summer is a great time to get caught up, and go ahead and stay tuned to our Instagram, kindredspirits.bookclub this summer, because you never know when we just might drop a surprise. And that's also where you will know when our 5th season will launch. So if you're not subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen, be sure to do that now so you will get that automatically updated in your feed as soon as the next season starts. In the meanwhile, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts so that more Kindred Spirits can find us. You can still get a free Kindred Spirits Book Club sticker if you screenshot your review and email us at kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com, or if you DM us on Instagram. Thank you so much, Kindred Spirits, and happy summer.
Have a great summer, Kindred Spirits.